Hello, I'm Debra Holt, and this is Lifestreams. I'm so glad you tuned in today. Just make yourself comfortable, and you're in for a real treat. I have some amazing people with me today. I have Susan and Cindy, and they have a really neat ministry called Timeless Stories. And they share inspirational stories, and you're going to get to hear a few of those today. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm going to not waste a lot of time. I want to get right into that because they are going to share several stories. So Cindy, I'm so glad you're here, and Susan and Cindy. And I am just going to start over here with you, Susan, and I'm just going to let you share a little bit about yourself, and then you can go into your first story.
Okay, well, my name is Susan Gundy, and I am so glad to be here. We thank you so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome.
To be able to share with the people out there. I'm retired, and it looks like I'm starting another career.
I think it's awesome.
And this is a lot of fun. I have always loved storytelling. I come from Kentucky, where there's storytellers all over the place, have a love of camping. And
that's great.
You know, there's always storytellers there. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought I would like to tell stories. Well, 2 years ago in Normal, they had a storytelling conference where you could go and learn to tell Bible stories. Cool. Well, that became even more interesting to think I could tell Bible stories. And so
and the Bible is full of amazing stories.
Oh
my gosh. It's like they make great TV programs because they're so incredible. Sorry, go ahead.
No, please do. And I was invited to become a member of BibleTelling.org group who meets on Sunday afternoons at 1:30. We meet and we tell Bible stories and discuss them. And then we go out into the community to anybody who'll invite us and tell Bible stories. Cool. Cindy and I sort of expanded into our own with the Timeless Stories because Cindy writes, and she has stories about some character. One is Gigi that you're going to meet later on today. And so we've expanded it.
That's great.
To tell other types of stories, maybe at schools or the library or some other place that might invite us, but we want them to have a biblical type background. And you're going to hear a couple of those stories today.
That is really neat.
But basically it's Bible stories that we're interested in, and the organization is BibleTelling.org. Okay. And it is run by a gentleman called John Walsh. And he has written 240 Bible stories. So they're already written. You just have to learn to tell them. Now, in this group that we're in, we also have people who will go out and teach people how to tell stories.
That's really cool.
So if someone wants someone to come into their church.
I do. I want them to come to our building or their live streams and teach us.
We will be glad to set up something and come and teach you how to tell Bible stories.
That'd be really neat.
It is really a fun thing to do and very rewarding telling the gospel. You know that.
Yeah, it is. It is an amazing thing, I'll tell you. Well, that is really, really neat. I just think it's such a neat thing to find a new way of getting these amazing Bible stories out there because they're life-giving, you know.
And if you're retired and you're just sitting around and you're bored, let us know because it is something that you might enjoy doing yourself because everyone can tell a story.
Yeah, they can.
They can. They don't think they can, but everyone can tell a story.
I have to say that Susan, I met her through her son, Ben, is a fireman, and I just thought that was so neat. I have such a deep respect for firemen, you know, for what they do, and they get paid not near enough. I think they should make what the pro ball people play, the ball players, you know. But I have a great respect for Ben and Danielle, his lovely bride. And so that was so neat to finally get to meet Ben's mother. And that's really, you have other children?
Yes, I do. I have a son in Pontiac.
Okay.
He's a lieutenant at the Pontiac Correctional Center.
Wow.
Yeah.
Another very respectable position. it. Well, let's go ahead and I'll have you go on into a story for us, and then we'll get to you, Cindy, and find out more about you. Okay.
Well, the first story I'm going to do is called The Crucifixion. But I'm going to do it just a little bit differently. I'm going to tell it to you as the thief that was hanging next to Jesus might have experienced it. This is his story. Jesus was to be crucified, and I was very shocked to hear that. I, too, am going to be crucified, but I was caught stealing, and I am a thief. The punishment for being a thief was crucifixion. I am guilty, but I can't understand why they found Jesus guilty and thought that he should be crucified. Well, we were getting ready. It was our day, and we were getting ready to make the journey to the hill, which is called the Skull, or Calvary is another name for it. I hadn't seen Jesus yet, but I was thinking that along the way I might. As we started on our journey, I looked and there he was. Oh my goodness. I could not believe how he looked. What have they done to him? And here the religious leaders are continuing to mock him and to spit on him. And the Roman soldiers, they're hitting him. And what is that on his head? Well, it's a crown. It's a crown of thorns. Why have they done this to this man? I used to go and listen to him, and I loved listening to his stories. You know, he loved the people. He fed them. He took care of them. He taught them, and he even healed them. And his ministry was always kindness and love and mercy. And to see him treated in this manner, I just didn't know what had happened that had caused that. Well, all of a sudden there was a gasp from the crowd, and I looked around, and Jesus had fallen. He was so weak he couldn't even carry the cross. They jerked a man out of the crowd, and they made him carry the cross for Jesus. When they got us to the hill, they nailed Jesus to the tree, and they had to the cross, and they had this sign, and it said, "King of the Jews." One of the religious leaders said, "Don't say that. Don't say the king." Well, Pilate happened to be at the crucifixion, and Pilate said, "I have written what I have written." And they nailed that sign to the top of Jesus' cross. When they had us attached to the crosses, they lifted us up and dropped the cross into the ground, which was excruciating. They hung me on one side of Jesus, and they hung another thief on the other side of him. The crowd continued to mock him, but I heard Jesus pray, "Father, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're doing." And I thought, forgive them? Forgive them for doing this to you? I couldn't believe it. But that was his ministry. He was always loving the people. The thief on the other side of the cross joined the crowd in mocking him and said, "If you are the Son of Man, save yourself and save us too." I told him, "Hush. We hang here guilty of our crimes. This man has done nothing. You be still." I looked at Jesus and I said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus looked at me and said, "Today you will be with me in paradise." Well, I thought about that. My crucifixion didn't seem so bad anymore. We hung there for about 3 hours, and darkness came across the earth, and black clouds rolled in the sky. I heard Jesus say, "I thirst." And they gave him vinegar he refused to drink because that prolonged the pain and agony of a crucifixion. And then he looked out over the crowd. He saw his mother and one of his disciples standing there with him. It was John. And he said, "Woman, behold," look to John. And he told John, "John, take care of my mother." Here he was in the midst of dying, still caring and still ministering to the people. Always. Why did they do this? What has he done? 3 more hours passed, and I heard him cry, my God, why have you forsaken me?" My heart broke. I didn't know what to say. And in a little while, he said, "It is finished. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." I thought, oh, my crucifixion is just nothing compared to what this man has suffered. All of a sudden there was an earthquake. The ground shook. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. I was tied. The soldiers also wanted to run. They couldn't. They had to stay and guard us so that we would not escape. The people began to run. I saw huge boulders split in two. I heard someone cry, the veil in the temple has been split from the top to the bottom. Holy people have left their tombs and they are walking the streets of Jerusalem. I heard the soldiers who had just been gambling for Jesus' clothes say, "Truly, this must be the Son of God." Once again, my crucifixion didn't seem so bad, and I almost became happy because my death was coming. And today, I was going to be with Jesus in paradise.
Wow. That's precious. That's very precious. You know, it is a beautiful thing to think about Jesus and his walk on earth and how he felt, you know, when you talked about the emotions, you know, when he said, "Why have you forsaken me?" The fact that he had those human emotions. It was like that one thing was put in there to remind us that he was completely God but completely man. And that his focus was always on others. Always on others. How beautiful. That's
his dying
story.
day. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was
I love that.
about what he was to bring to earth. That salvation for these humans, you know. Wow, that was beautiful. I loved it. Okay, Cindy, you want to tell a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I think I'll tell you how I got into storytelling.
Okay.
I grew up in Nebraska on a farm, and the Oregon Trail, we had an Oregon Trail monument. And every year, about a couple miles from our house, we did a reenactment. Mm-hmm. And there were storytellers there.
Oh,
and I loved them. Way back in high school, I thought it would be cool to be a storyteller. I never thought I could be, but I thought it would be cool. Well, then when we traveled, we would go to different museums. And, you know, back in my day, they had real people telling stories. It wasn't putting a machine on your head and listening to it. Yeah. So it inspired me again about being a storyteller. Well, then we went to a resort in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and there was a storyteller there. And this time I was watching the people as they were listening to him. And he had them so enthralled. He was painting such a beautiful picture that we were all on the edge of our seat.
It is powerful.
It is. And on the way home, I said to my husband, I would love to be able to do that. Well, it wasn't until about maybe 5 or 6 weeks later, I hear my husband coming up the street, and he goes, Cindy, he had just gotten the mail, and he had a great course catalog, and he says, storytelling is in there. He says, why don't we get it and see what it's like?
That's awesome.
And that's what started it.
And did he go with you to the course?
We did it at home.
Together?
It was an online course. We did it at home.
Okay.
And then right after that, a friend called me and said, John Walsh is going to be in Peoria this weekend doing a storytelling conference. And
I bet that was really interesting.
So we went to that, and
I think that's so
how it
awesome
started.
your husband was so excited for you that he knew that was your heart, that you wanted to do that, and he found a way to plug you into it. That's just really sweet.
And
very,
he
very
goes-
sweet of your husband.
I go to the same storytelling thing with her on Sundays, and he goes
Okay.
along too, and he tells
Okay.
stories.
That
so it's
is
kind
really,
of fun.
really, really neat.
It's really.
I'm glad you shared that.
Thank you.
Well, you're going to tell us the story, right?
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you the story of Zacchaeus. It was a beautiful day in Jericho. The sun was shining. And as you would walk down the streets, you would hear pounding in the distance from the carpenter shop. And as you continue to walk down the streets, you'd smell that bread baking. You see, today everyone was excited because they had heard this man Jesus was going to be passing through. Well, almost everybody was excited. There was this man by the name of Zacchaeus. He was a short little guy. He wasn't sure what to think about Jesus. I suspect as he traveled that he would hear good things and he would hear bad things. So today he came with a curiosity of finding out. Now, Zacchaeus was a tax collector. Well, he was the chief tax collector, and they hated tax collectors back then because they were very much like bullies who would take more money than they should, and they would pocket it. Mm-hmm. And Zacchaeus wanted to go see Jesus, but he didn't want his friends to see him. Then he was going to go see Jesus, because that would ruin his reputation after all. Well, he decided that he would just go over by the side of the road that Jesus was coming down. He'd just take a look. Well, he couldn't believe how many people were there. So he ran down the road a little bit, and he saw a sycamore tree. Well, now a sycamore tree is all gnarly and twisted, and it's a great tree for a short little guy to climb. So he pulled up his tunic, and he climbed up in that sycamore tree. Well, he didn't want anybody to see him. So he hid among the leaves, and he found a nice branch to sit on. And he's sitting there, and he's waiting, and he's waiting, and he's waiting. Pretty soon, he hears cheering in the distance. He says, Jesus must have arrived. So he keeps looking down the road, and pretty soon, Jesus turns the corner, and he's watching this Jesus. And he goes, I can't believe it. He is talking to women, and he's talking to children. Men don't do that. Who is this guy? And he kept watching him, and pretty soon he was close by. And Zacchaeus was trying to hide, and then he hears, Zacchaeus, you come down, because I'm coming to your house today. Zacchaeus is thinking, how did he know my name? And he says it again, Zacchaeus, come down to my house. I'm coming to your house today. So Zacchaeus, he slithers down out of the tree, and he has his eyes on Jesus. He is so focused on Jesus. I don't think he heard the crowd around him. They were angry. Why would Jesus go with this sinner? He's the worst sinner of all. Why is Jesus having dinner with him? Well, Jesus and Zacchaeus continue to walk. And then when they get out of town, Zacchaeus looks at Jesus, and he says, Jesus, I am the biggest sinner of all. He says, I am a very rich man. I have taken money from people I should not have. I will pay back 4 times the amount. And he says, and I will give half of what I have to the poor. Can't you just see that smile on Jesus' face? Because you see, Jesus comes to seek and save the lost. And today, that happened.
It's powerful. That was one of my kids' favorite stories. When I would read to them at bedtime and stuff, that was one of their favorite stories. Okay, I think we have time for more, so let's go ahead and jump right into it, just because, for the sake of time, if we want to get 2 more in,
Okay.
we're going to jump right into the next one.
Okay, well, this is a story, but it is not a Bible story. It is called The Duck and the Devil, or God is Always Watching. Johnny and Sally used to go and visit their grandparents every summer. Well, one summer, Johnny's grandparents bought him a slingshot, told him he could go to the woods in the back of their house and practice. Well, Johnny went to bed, and the next morning got up, ate his breakfast, grabbed that slingshot, took off out of the house to the woods. He shot at everything he saw. He shot at trees. He shot at the leaves. He shot at bugs. He shot at rocks. But Johnny never was able to hit anything. Well, as the day ended and he needed to go home to eat dinner, on the way home, he spotted Grandma's pet duck. He could not resist the temptation. He loaded that slingshot with a rock, he let that slingshot fly, and pow, hit the duck right in the center of its head. Killed it.
Uh-oh.
Oh, now what does he do? Well, he sees a wood pile. He picks up that duck and he takes it to the wood pile and he hides it. Then he turns to go on to Grandma's house. And there stood his sister, Sally. Well, he had no choice. He had to go on to Grandma's house. And when he got there, he was surprised that Sally didn't say anything. Well, they sat down to dinner and they ate, and still Sally hadn't said anything. And after dinner, they always went outside and played till bedtime. And they got up to do that, and Grandma says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I need you, Sally, to stay here and help me do the dishes tonight." Well, Sally looked over at Grandma, and then she glanced over at Johnny, and she said, "Grandma, Johnny told me that he wanted to help you do the dishes." And to Johnny, she said, "Remember the duck?" So Johnny stayed in the house and helped Grandma with the dishes while Sally went on out to play till it was bedtime. Well, the next day was a beautiful day, and Grandpa came in and said, "Hey, kids, let's go fishing." Oh, Johnny loved to fish. Sally did too. And when they got ready to leave, Grandma said, "I'm sorry, but I need Sally to stay here and help me clean the house and prepare dinner." Well, Sally once again looked at Grandma and then glanced over at Johnny, and she said, "Grandma, Johnny told me that he wanted to help you here in the house." She looked at Johnny and said, "Remember the duck?" And so Johnny had to stay in the house and help Grandma clean the house and cook the dinner, and Sally got to go fishing with Grandpa. Well, this went on for several days until Johnny just had enough of doing his chores and his sister Sally's too. So he went to Grandma, and a big tear was rolling down his cheek. And he said, "Grandma, I'm so sorry, but I killed your pet duck." Grandma looked at him and she said, "Oh, Johnny, I know. I was standing right there at the kitchen window and I saw the whole thing." And she reached down, grabbed him in a great big bear hug and said, "But I loved you and you are already forgiven. I was just wondering how long you were going to let Sally make a slave out of you." You know, this is the way God is. He's always at the window watching. He sees what we do, and he already knows. He's just waiting for us to come to him and say, "I am sorry," so that he can reach down with his great big arms, wrap us in a hug, and say, "I know. I was at the window watching. I saw the whole thing. I was just waiting to see how long you would let Satan make a slave out of you."
That is good. That's powerful. Very good. It's exactly what he does. Tries to hold us hostage.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Well, that's really powerful. Well, Cindy, what do you have for us?
Well, I'm going to do a Gigi story. This is Gigi right here, and she's going to let me tell you a story about her. Well, Gigi, she belongs to a flock of sheep, and she has a shepherd. And the shepherd told them that they were going to be moving to a new field. Well, Gigi was all excited, and she got up early the next morning to go. But before they left, of course, the shepherd gives them instructions. He says, "Okay, we need to stay together, do not lag behind, and no strays." So they all agreed, and they're following Jesus, and they're going through creeks and the meadows and the valleys, and then Gigi smells clover. Well, you see, sheep have a wonderful sense of smell, and Gigi loves clover. I mean, she loves clover. So she smelled it, and she's like, and she's looking for it, and she keeps, oh, then she finds it, and she's so excited, and she turns around to tell him, and nobody's around. She said, where did everybody go? What happened to them? Well, Gigi, she's thinking about what is she going to do. She needs to find them, and she sees a hill, so she climbs up the hill, and she says, oh, I'll see them from up there. So she climbs the hill, and she looks all down into the valley, and she doesn't see anybody. She goes, oh, no. She goes, are they going to miss me? Will my shepherd even care that I'm gone? What am I going to do? Well, she noticed that the sun was beginning to set, and so she walks around to try to look for them, and she doesn't see them anywhere, and she realizes that she's really got to find a place to stay for the night because of the wild animals. And so she sees a tree that had fallen over, and she scooches under that tree, and she sits there, and it's getting cold, and she has no one to snuggle up with, and she goes, I shouldn't have disobeyed my shepherd. I should have paid attention. And she begins to cry. And then she hears strange noises, and that makes her fearful. Well, somewhere amidst all of that, she falls asleep. And the next thing you know, she feels such warmth. She opens her eyes, and she's on her shepherd's shoulder, and he has his arms around her. And they go back to the field where everyone else is. And when he puts her down, she looks around, and she realizes he left all the others just to come find me.
That's sweet. That's really cute. That's precious. Well, you know, he will leave the 99, it says, and come hunting. Oh, and it's, I love both of those stories because it talks about his focus on us. Watching out the window was also, you know, really good to make you feel like he's focusing on us. Well, we've only got a couple minutes here left. Is there anything, if you each took 1 minute real quick, is there anything you would like to say to the people out there? Susan, first you. Is there anything you would like to say to someone sitting in their living room?
I hope you enjoyed the stories. Taking the Bible and the scripture from the Bible and turning it into a story to tell. We hope that you realize that Jesus loves all of us and that he died for all of us and that he's always watching us, just waiting for us to come to him so that we can be wrapped in his great big arms of love.
Maybe there's somebody out there that hasn't started their journey with the Lord. Cindy, what would you say to them? How easy is it to do that?
You know, storytelling, I thought I knew about the Bible, and then I got into storytelling, and it is marvelous. Storytelling gives you the details, and you really learn how great God is, how intimate he is, and how much he loves everyone.
That is so true. Well, maybe you haven't started your journey with the Lord, and I want to give you that opportunity today, because right where you are, all you have to do is confess that you've missed the mark and invite him to come into your heart and surrender your life to him. It's that simple. It's just beginning a relationship. So we love you, we bless you, and Jesus Christ, he died for you and he loves you, so open up your heart to him today. Well, we'll talk to you again next time on Lifestreams. God bless you.